I'm Suchetna and I'll be your MC for this post-lunch session. It's a pleasure to be with you all. The session is titled Global Footprints, Insights and Experiences from International Higher Education Hubs. It examines successful models of educational hubs such as Dubai International Academic City, Qatar's Education City, and Singapore's Global Schoolhouse. Leading chancellors and researchers will share insights into how these regions have opened their borders to attract Western universities and international students through strategic policy changes. The panel will deliberate on practical experiences of institutions operating within these special education zones and the specific concessions that facilitate their growth. By exploring these global footprints, the discussion aims to facilitate the sharing of best practices and analyze the impact of such hubs on regional education systems. Ultimately, the session provides a comparative lens to help local HEIs understand the competitive landscape of established international academic clusters. To moderate this session, I welcome on stage Dr. Hardik Vajrajani and the speakers. May I also welcome Ms. Alison Barre, MBE, Country Director of India British Council, Professor Ian Martin, Vice Chancellor and President, Deakin University, Australia, Dr. Rahul Chowdaha, COO, University of Aberdeen, Mumbai, India, Dr. Nimai Kalyani, Campus Director, University of Wollongong, India, and Dr. Riccardo Balbo, Academic Director, IED, Istituto Europeo del Design, Italy. Thank you and welcome all. Dr. Hardik Vajrajani, Professor and Head, Global Engagement and Partnership, ANZ, and Director, Quality Management and Benchmarking, Symbiosis International University. Dr. Vajrajani is a higher education leader with over 20 years of international experience across Australia, India, and Europe. He is Professor of Management and Director of Quality Management and Benchmarking at Symbiosis International University and leads global engagement for Australia and New Zealand. His expertise includes institutional leadership, quality assurance, accreditation, and student success with knowledge of global regulatory frameworks and rankings such as QS and Times Higher Education. He holds a PhD from NMIMS University and completed postdoctoral research at the University of Bologna. He has received research funding from the Swiss National Science Foundation, the European Commission, and Deakin University, Australia. Previous roles include Associate Dean at Crown Institute of Higher Education and academic positions at Australian Catholic University and Victoria University, Australia. Before we begin, a few housekeeping announcements to help ensure the smooth running of the conference. Kindly keep your mobile phones on silent mode during all sessions. Each session will be followed by a Q&A. We request you to be ready with your questions. Kindly refrain from recording the sessions as it may disrupt the speakers and moderators on stage. The sessions are being recorded by the conference team and is being live streamed on YouTube. I now hand over to Dr. Vajrajani. Thank you.
Everyone, thanks my panel for being here in a post-lunch session. This is not the easiest session to moderate, as you can imagine. Thank you all for taking time out and being here. This panel is going to be structured in 4 parts. The first part would be that I'll be asking questions, 1 question to each of the panelists. So it's the same question which everyone would answer. The second part is that I've got individualized questions for each of the members of the panel. In the third part, I'm going to come to all of you and ask questions, and I encourage international students and international participants, as well as students from India, to ask questions to the panel. And then at the end, if the time permits, we will have a very quick rapid fire session. So with that, thank you very much, Ian, Alison, Rahul, Ricardo, and Nimai for taking your time out today for this session. My first question to all of you is that you represent different countries and you represent different models of education in India. So my question to each one of you would be that what one thing surprised you about Indian higher education which you had not thought would happen? And I'm aware that, we've got people like Ian who have, Deakin in India for over 30 years, Ellison in India for over 25 years, so a lot may not surprise, but still India always surprises. So, Ian.
The simple answer is India never stops surprising you. But I think the one thing will be the thing I mentioned this morning, which is the transition from NEP to a draft document in 2019 to a live set of policy changes that just 2 or 3 years later we're seeing the way partners work with Indian institutions change almost overnight. And I could not believe it would happen that quickly.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I agree. Really impressive. I think another thing that I was really surprised about when I came back to take up this job as country director 3 years ago now, was that the UK and India signed the mutual recognition of academic qualifications, which was something that when I was here previously, 15, 20 years ago, we never thought would happen. So that was really, really impressive. And I think it's just sort of similar to what Ian was saying, just a symbol of how the focus on policy is really, it's got teeth and it's really working.
Thank you. So from my perspective, I was in the US for 18 years and then came back to India. And then even at that point, I was doing research on international branch campuses 20 years ago. And there was a policy bill at that point of time which was supposed to bring foreign universities to India. It never happened. But finally, things have started taking shape with NEP. So just building on Ian and Alison's point, what has happened in the last 5 years is at least 3 to 4 times than what has happened in the previous years. So that is a pleasant surprise that action is now the modus, the key word rather than just the rhetoric.
Thank you. Well, not being formally settled in India for us from Italy, it was very interesting to note how there are asymmetries, not just among countries, but internally. And those asymmetries are sometimes very annoying, but on the other side, they are exactly the richness you can spot in order to put under criticism yourself before. So I mean, coming from abroad, you think either they are really better or either they are really When in the reality, you can spot something that is astonishingly better and sometimes think that, wait a minute. So I can tell that my criticism improved a lot against my regulators in Italy after knowing things better in the Indian system, because you are in some aspect far beyond at least Italy or Europe. So it was really a shock, and those asymmetries are exactly where we should put the fingers in order to better understand rather than simply saying good or bad. Wait a minute, let's discuss and let's see and build up on that.
Well, for me, look, India has been opening up its doors to international trade, investments, the liberalization of markets since '97. So more than a surprise, it's a bit of a disappointment that the education sector joined the party this late. But hey, better late than never. So it's a good thing.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone. Now, the title of this panel is Global Footprints. Now, footprints can be washed away by tide. And we've been discussing over the last couple of days that none of the providers in India right now are here just to make money and ship that truckloads of money, if it exists, to their own countries. So I really want to understand from each one of you, how do you see your particular campus contribute to the lasting impression of your university in the society where it is coming, that is the Indian society? Yeah? I think there is one there, so you will, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So, Deacon's been working in India now for 34 years, and we've developed quite a complex ecosystem of activity here in terms of research, limited partnerships, which led into much more detailed hub partnerships. But I think what the branch campus has done has given us two things. One, a profile that we are prepared to invest here and have a long-term physical presence. But I think the other thing, it's enabled us to continue to try, experiment, and see what is going to work in the UK system, in the Australian system, and in the Indian system in terms of branch campuses in a very, very new environment. We never came into the branch campus to make money. That was not part of it. It was part of continuing to build that ongoing relationship. Now, if in 5-10 years' time that becomes part of the mix, that is fantastic. But actually it's about learning, it's about deepening, and it is about ensuring that we can do that rich ecosystem going forward.
Mm-hmm. And listen, what is your experience in general of the British universities? Because you don't represent a particular British university, but kind of everyone.
Yes, no pressure. Yeah, so I think British Council, we've also been here for many, many years, and our role is to create those connections between the UK and other countries, and obviously my job is to do that here in India. And so the university campuses, the commitment of the UK universities to India, completely agree with Ian. This is about, joining hands with a country that is, one of the fastest growing economies in the world, has one of the largest higher education systems in the world, is contributing significantly to global innovation, to global thinking, is really innovating education through lots of different initiatives that we'll kind of probably come back to later. And so holding hands with India and coming to India is really a no-brainer for the UK universities. And so it's really critical that they're here in full with a fully sort of thought through holistic strategy of engagement, that they're thinking through both research and teaching, that they're thinking about how that proximity to their potential partners in India can help strengthen not only their activities here, but their activities that are generating outputs that will benefit populations outside of India and the UK. So it's a very strategic, very brave, very courageous, and very committed move.
So from my perspective, I think, or University of Aberdeen, Mumbai's perspective, the operating word here is being relevant, right? So University of Aberdeen had been internationally engaged for centuries, so more than 4 centuries, more than 5 centuries of history. But the key thing is that when the mobility directions are facing some headwinds, for bringing international students to the home campus, at the same time having a mission which is already having internationalization embedded into it, not having that opportunity to realize it is a loss. So to be relevant, one has to figure out new modes of engagement. And so International Branch Campus happens to be one of the modes. While there are many other modes, as it was discussed in the morning, this branch campus model allows the university to be, again, being relevant as the things start to change in multiple dimensions, societal, geopolitical, commercial, innovation, and every other dimension, right? So that's one part. But the second very important part is that this is where, as an ecosystem of talent, if you say in India, there is so much opportunity. And that opportunity can be maximized for both India and for the universities by having this engagement. So there are two layers to it. How does university ensure that it remains relevant to its core mission, where internationalization is already embedded? So they have to be part of this equation to bring it, the campus here. And the second part is the opportunity base, that it's a really important part to be relevant, to not only contribute, but learn from this ecosystem of talent. So that's where the university took this initiative to be part of the branch campus in India.
Well, let me start with a metaphor. I mean, like footprint is a very strong image that we know since we are kids. So a footprint is different according to your weight, is according to the kind of soil you are walking, and it depends on your intention. I mean, you can run, you can escape, you can dance, you can have a romantic walk. So a footprint doesn't mean anything. I mean, footprint is related to the intention, and then it's an effect. So I'm super scared if I have to imagine myself leaving the same footprint everywhere I walk. So before leaving a footprint, I want to understand and I want to wonder myself, which kind of footprint would I leave here? So basically, to get out from metaphor, transnational education should, before starting processes, should ask itself why we want to have transnational education. It's related with market of education and squeezing families and students in order to make some other, I mean, you know, because we were already referring to it. So that is not my intention, even because it's ridiculous. I mean, in Italy is like Mumbai, more or less. I mean, a bit bigger, but not that much. So, I mean, we are not here to compete or, you know. So the kind of footprint that I imagine is enriching, I mean, creating more value that is not economic, because at the end, economical values are like sand in your hands. They are just good if you know where to put, otherwise you will, you know, lose and waste. So creating more values for who? For the final target, that is always a student. So student, it's always at the end. And there is a big ecosystem around students, families, professors, staff, administration, and then regulators, and this, but everything spins around students. So that is the footprint that I like to leave. Being able to participate to, as the Chancellor was saying this morning, to the increase of a process of building up better citizens for the world. That's the only footprint that we should try to aim.
Sorry, I've sabotaged the mic for myself. So, footprints, well, very well put, Hardik. Essentially, if there's a footprint, somebody's been there and progressed on. And if you think of Wollongong, branch campuses, we are not new to it. 34 years now in Dubai, another 10, 15 years in Malaysia, Hong Kong, partnerships in Singapore and China. So we've had international presence for probably quite some time now, quite a long time, and been there, done that, progressed, and everywhere we go, there's only one thing that we consistently focus on, as Ricardo rightly pointed out, students. They are the future, so let's make the future together. That's number one. But the other more important thing is we go there to become the locals, not join the local, but absolutely become the local. It's like the Bata of the world. No matter what you do, everyone thinks you're local. And that's what we're going to be here as well. Not an international branch campus, but a local branch campus.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, everyone. Great conversations. Now, in the second part, I'm going to ask a particular question to each one of you, which is targeted at you based on your profile. And for no particular reason, or maybe because of my connections with Australia, I've got two for Ian. And sorry. So, Ian, the first is that you speak a lot about the social license. And we all know that social license has been in debate for a prolonged period of time in Australia now and has been in debate around the world. Deakin is the first university in India to set up a campus. What happens to your social license? Does it remain valid when you enter India or Indonesia? But we will talk more about India here because we are in India. What happens to that? That's my question one, please. Yes.
It's a really good question, and I think for those who are not familiar with the Australian scene at the moment, and I think it's not dissimilar in the UK, there is probably more questioning of the role and purpose of public universities than there's been, I think, at any point in their existence. And that's been framed for me in terms of this question of why are we there, what do we do? And I've talked a lot about a mission that's legitimate, a mission that the public trust, where we show both responsibility and accountability for what we do. Whether those activities are in Geelong, which is a redeveloping industrial city just to the west of Melbourne, or whether they are in Gandhinagar in Gujarat, I think they are the same questions. And we have to say, as we establish branch campuses around the world, how is that compatible with the permission to operate that the people of Australia give us? And we ask ourselves that question, and what does it mean? Well, it means that that can't dominate our thinking. It has to be done as part of the overall mission core priorities on education and research. It has to be balanced, and our students at home and our communities at home need to have a really clear explanation of why we are doing that. And we spend a lot of time talking about the benefits of having those international relationships, whether it is student mobility, cultures coming into the campus so that other people get a benefit from it. You come to our Diwali celebration every year, you'll see 3,000 or 4,000 people from our own community and outside celebrating what we've been able to build through Indian partnerships. And it is also about ensuring that our academic staff have pathways to build meaningful research partnerships as well, and our Indian bits are no different from that, whether it's IITM or IIT Hyderabad, the work that we do around the country. But we can't think about it in isolation, and I think where universities have got themselves a little bit unstuck is where they've had a rather unipolar relationship around, that's the international piece and there's the rest of it. You can see them falling apart.
All right. Extending to what you said, you know, and this is a curious question. If a student from Lara or Burwood comes to you and asks that why is Deakin investing in Gandhinagar and Bandung when we are going through cost of living crisis, our HEC debt is going up, how would you respond to that?
My first response would be, it is a legitimate question, and I need to know how to answer that. And my sense is that Deakin is a university that is committed to working locally, but acting as a bridge. So my sense is that what we can do for you as a local student is be a bridge to what happens in the rest of the world. And I would actually argue now, more than almost any point in the last 10 to 15 years, the place of universities being a bridge to have safe middle ground conversations that bring communities, world philosophies, political views together is probably more important now than at any point in my leadership time in universities. And I think that there is a slightly more pragmatic and practical response, is that the education experience that you get at Deakin Burwood or Deakin Geelong is better because of what we've done internationally over the years. Some of that better is, I'll be unashamedly, is a financial better, that we've been able to invest more in the teaching facilities, in the sporting facilities, what you are benefiting for as a domestic student. But some of it is really benefited what we've done from our education and research missions by having different worldviews in and around the university. But we've got to be able to answer that question and answer it with pride and clarity.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thanks. Alison, British Council has been in India, probably the longest. And you've seen Indian higher education change. I still remember I was doing my BA with English from the only college in my town which used to offer that program. And we either used to get the second-hand textbooks, or if we wanted to access the textbook, we were told that you go to Ahmedabad and there is a British library there, which was run by British Council. I just Googled, and unfortunately, I have read that it's closed. So maybe you can include that in your response. How have you seen Indian education change from those days to today?
I think I'm going to start by responding to your library question and connect it to what Ian said, and then move into the third part, if that's okay. So I think what's happening in universities is not actually that different from what's happening in lots of other sectors, right? So if I take the British Council and the British Council libraries, when I first joined the British Council in '97, I think we had 14 libraries across the country in different places. Now we have 2. But the reason we only have 2 is partly what Ian was saying. We are also beholden to generating value for money for our UK taxpayers, for our partners here in India. We want to make sure that we achieve our mission, which is reaching young people and building connections with the UK. And, that student, now in the town that you're from, he doesn't have to drive 250 kilometers to a library, right? They can access it online. So we now have a very rich and very well-accessed digital library. We have members of the British Council Digital Library from close to 200 cities around India. We've seen a 30% growth in membership of that library over the last year. And so we're putting our energies now into developing that so that we can really bring that content to young people where they are and reach them in places we never would normally have been able to. And we're also looking at partnerships. So in Karnataka, with the government in Karnataka, we have a collaboration with the Additional Chief Secretary, where we have a British Council corner in 70 rural community libraries. So that geographical footprint for us is still important, and it's in those 70 libraries where young people would never normally have the chance to access English books, or would find it hard to access English books, and we have a digital model. So sort of circling back to higher education, that's what the higher education sector is doing. It's looking at ways that it can innovate for the future. It's thinking about what higher education is going to look like in 10, 20, 30 years' time. It's looking at where students want to be able to access higher education. And what's happening in India, I think, is really exciting, because India is already thinking about those trends and those changes, because India has to, because of the scale, because of the demand, the demographic dividend. So the exciting things for me that are happening in India, and it will be really intrigued to see what will happen over the next 5 years, is, the academic bank of credits, the MIMI, the multiple entry, multiple exit concept, the range of different digital platforms, Shiksha, Nishta, all those different platforms which will enable young people to access content wherever they are. And, let's hope maybe 10, 15 years' time, it'll be easier for us to collaborate online and distance higher education as well. But I think India is really, with its ambition, with its policy, it's really creating a sense of ambition and a sense of confidence in the system that's quite exciting.
That's it. Thanks. Rahul, I know you as Dr. Education more than Rahul, because I was an early follower of your blog when blogs were probably not this fancy. And you used to present, I'm using the word used to because I think you officially closed that blog. You used to present the data in the time when there was no analytical AI tools and stuff like that. So my question to you is that, based on your experience and data, what is one thing that foreign universities get wrong about Indian students?
First of all, thank you for taking me back in history. Yeah, those were the days of blogging. Maybe it's a post-lunch session, so maybe I can do a social experiment here, a quick straw poll. So if I were to ask each one of you to just go back when you were 18-year-old, and there were no constraints, and you can choose any college in the world to go wherever you want to go, how many of you would like to go to Harvard? Raise the hand. How many of you would like to raise the hand? So I just counted all of you. It's pretty much 73% of you, right? So that's to make a point that when we make choices about college, we are working with multiple factors which serve as constraints on those choices. It could be a constraint of finances, location, immigration and visa policies, to admissions scores, to just having English requirements, multiple constraints for anyone to get to their aspired institution, right? Like where they actually want to be. They may be fully capable, but there are many other barriers to work with it. So the point which oftentimes, this is of course very early in the process, international branch campuses, if we talk about, they have a history of 2 to 3 years at this point. So very small data point, very small timeline to work with. So the one thing which is often missed is the complexity of student decision making. Oftentimes, it's not just the foreign universities, I would say even with Indian universities that happens, that the complexity of decision making in terms of college choice is really influenced by multiple factors. And the sizing of that factors in terms of enrollment, that okay, how many students will finally enroll? How many students will be actually built into the strategic plan for the university for the 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? That right sizing of it is still not happening. Some of them could be too optimistic, some of them could be pessimistic, because the data points are very limited at this point of time. So 2 points to sum it up, and then I'll pass it on. One, the complexity of student choice. That is being kind of missing in a lot of times in terms of how the strategic plans have been built. And the second point is that the time frame or the history of branch campuses in general is so short that we need to give a little bit of a runway, another 3-5 years to see how they will scale and grow. And that's when we will start figuring out what is the student real drivers, what are they looking for. While we talk often, and it is true, about career outcomes, but there is a lot more going on, because the aspiration could be everybody to be in Harvard, but then the constraints starts coming in and the reality hits. So likewise, the career outcomes is an important element, but there is a lot more is happening about the student choice, which not just foreign universities, all universities need to be cognizant of to support the students. But thank you, Hardik, for that question of connect to doctor education.
Ricardo.
Yes, I am here.
Okay, so what IHE does is very rooted in Italy. It's design, it's creative arts, it's fashion. You know, when you have to think about all these things, you got to take yourself to Italy, at least in the mental frame. How will your institute internationalize in a country like India? Are you going to bring that Italian-rooted education and recreate it here in the Indian context? Or are you going to take something Indian and create a mix of it?
Wow. There is a kind of big misunderstanding about Made in Italy, because Made in Italy is not about products. Made in Italy is about an attitude that is very much focusing on the process rather than the product. And in fact, you can produce made in Italy outside Italy, or you can produce made in Italy without Italian designers. It's not a matter of DNA, passport, etc. So made in Italy was, as products, was invented in the 50s as a brand. It was one of the most genial operation of cultural and national marketing. So we, of course, we teach, but we don't teach made in Italy production. We teach this attitude that is the effect of several conditions that were really nurtured by the country. Being like a finger in the Mediterranean, being super dense because the number of population and the territory has a high density, being the center of what was considered the world in Europe, and being rich. I mean, all these conditions, the weather, the exchange, brought up a quality in the craftsmanship that was so high that after the war, this has been transformed naturally and very carefully in an industrial process. So that is exactly what Made in Italy is producing. So after years, being aware of this process means that you can export the process, because you are not exporting a culture or exporting a language, exporting, we have schools in Spain, we have schools in Brazil. The fashion design students' production is different, because the fashion in Brazil is different from fashion design in Italy. But still, the process is the same. So, and the process is made out of ability to interact, ability to start from your errors, ability to look with a different perspective, even if you are into one position. So all these things, ability to mix cultural and liberal studies with super technical things. So all these ingredients that I was referring to when I was answering to your first question, I noticed, for example, that in the curricula in India, the structure is very different from our structures, because curricula in Italy are still the effect of this kind of approach. So I'm absolutely not afraid to in somehow lose some Italianity, because it's not the aim. The aim is trying to export an approach and see how this approach will be able to root here. Because the effect will be not, and doesn't want to be, the made in Italy in India. It will be a made in India, but with a process that is a different process from what you apply here.
Grazie mille. Nimai, you have a very unique story. You grew up in Ahmedabad and Maharashtra. I just got to know that. Yeah. And then you went to Newcastle, spent a lot of time in Newcastle, and then now you are with Wollongong, and you set up the branch campus of Wollongong in Gujarat, which is your home place. I got two questions. First, you went from Newcastle to Wollongong. Why did you skip Sydney? I'll come to that in a moment. But the second question is that what perspective your journey has, which somebody who is coming from disconnected place would not have. So what advantages do you have with your journeys?
You want me to answer the first question first?
Yeah, please go ahead.
You were in Sydney.
Okay.
You can't have two big people in the same city, okay. So I skipped it.
All right, fair enough.
Left that for you. All right. So for those of you who don't know, Newcastle is north of Sydney, Wollongong is south of Sydney, hence the question there. A perspective, see, I think it's an advantage that I probably have that a lot of people would otherwise not have. It's the understanding of both the cultures, the divide and the unification of the two cultures. And that enables me, and people like me, so I wouldn't just say myself, but a lot of people like me are the bridge between the two cultures, between the two countries. So yes, when the diplomats come together and say, okay, let's sign an agreement, let's recognize each other's education systems, let's enable pathways and etc. They need people like us who can understand both ends of the spectrum, bring them together, and enable these things. And one of the interesting things that Rahul spoke about earlier, which is the student mindset. If you think of students in India versus students in, say, Australia, UK, or Italy, not so much Italy though, you're very similar to us in this case, what I'm going to say, is the individualistic nature of decision making versus the collective nature of decision making. So for example, when I decided that I want to study this, study here, etc., there was a huge consultation process that went through the family. Can we afford it? Is it the good city? Is it a safe city? What's the support system there? So it was not just me choosing my degree, but it was a project. Where will the money come from? What kind of investments will be made? So on and so forth. Whereas if you look at the Western society, it's more about the individualistic nature of decision making, where the child says, that's what I want to study, that's the university I can study at, get your admission, get the ball rolling, you're 18, you're on your own. Yes, slowly but steadily dynamics are changing, but these kind of cultural nuances, we are still individual in our decision making in India, but the execution of the decision is not individual, it's collective. And I'm fairly certain that of those who are sitting in this room who are parents of somebody who's about to be 18 or already 18, dinners have not been nice. There definitely would have been conversations about what to study, where to study, why to study, what not to study. And it's all about the security of the future of not just the child, but the family as well. It is the upliftment of that entire family. It's seen as a safe pathway to building a better future. And that makes a huge difference. That cultural understanding is the difference.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Now, before I go to the audience for questions, one thing which has been under discussion since yesterday, and I want at least Ian, Nimai, and Rahul in the same sequence to answer. This is purely based on the age of the IBC. And then Ricardo last, because he's still in the design phase of the Design Institute. So the question is about the faculty. In general, there is an expectation in India that there will be faculties who will flow in from the home campus. And I see that there is a bit of a tension or an area of ambiguity exists about who will teach my kids, right? You know, if it's an IBC, people have to come from abroad. IBCs believe not always, and so on. So I really want all three of you to, in the same order, tell me your approaches to faculty recruitment and what rationale went into that.
You can tell from my slight hesitation that this has been an area of a lot of conversation for us. You're starting from a blank sheet because, again, you don't know what's going to work in an environment, and you can't really translate from one country to another because the academic system is so different. So we started with a model that we would have about 20% of our teaching delivered by effectively fly-in deacon staff, and that 80% would be locally employed faculty. Has it been exactly that? No, but it's largely stuck with that. What have we learnt? We've learnt that those staff which we set out to do need to feel they're part of the discipline back in the home university. They're not just isolated branch campus staff. We found that there is a slight disconnect, particularly in new areas like cybersecurity, where Indian students will often, with all due respect, and I am grey-haired so I can say this, the grey-haired very senior professor, whereas cybersecurity, most of the staff are very young, and there's a bit of a disconnect there. But the other thing we've learned that we will gradually build up is the importance of what we call professors of practice, bringing industry expertise into the classroom. That's becoming more and more important. We're still learning. This is a new relationship. And again, a bit like we were talking about, with Ricardo was talking about, are we creating an Australian experience in India for our staff and students in its entirety? That was where we started, because the regulator says 100% it has to look like the home base. That doesn't work. It's an Australian experience with very strong Indian flavours, and that goes for the way we think about faculty and the way we think about the student experience. And we've just had our first graduation, so we've already changed quite a bit. I think we will continue to adapt and refine, as I suspect every branch campus will over the next little while.
Sorry, Nima, before I come to you, while I have your attention, I want to understand, is your strategy different in Indonesia? Because there your partnership is different. You got one British university, one UK university setting up a campus in Indonesia. Sorry, Nimai. Yes.
It's actually largely the same. So the idea is that about 20% of the teaching is done by staff coming in. A, because the students want to see that, but also for the locally based staff, that link back to what we are doing, how we are doing it, that sense of academic community is important, particularly when you've got a relatively small startup piece. I mean, again, you want to make your life complicated. You start a new branch campus with 2 universities and another provider in a third-party country. It makes life complicated. But again, you learn a lot about what really matters quite quickly. But if we look forward 5 years, will it be exactly the same? No. Will that broad mix of strong link back and about 20% of people coming in to provide that flavour stay? I suspect it will.
Fantastic. Thanks, Nimai. Sorry.
Thanks. Look, I would completely resonate Ian's thought here that it has been a learning experience. It's been a journey of understanding what is expected of us. And it's a myth that the students expect international faculty. What they expect is an international exposure to learning experiences. And that's where I think, and I'll be honest, Deakin being one step ahead of us, we had the advantage of learning a lot of things through their footsteps, as you likely said earlier. They weren't completely washed off by then. And Ravneet over there and John and all, so we've been working closely behind doors, closed doors. And one of the things we early on understood from the student cohort, even before we went live, was that they will be expecting subject matter expertise with global exposure rather than an academic flying in from Australia or any of our other campuses. And so one of the things we did was we ensured that the academics that we recruit come with an international exposure. So we have one of our professors who's come back from Seattle, the other one who's a Wharton graduate who's come back from the US. So these are the people who essentially bring the international flavor. They're quite local to India. So they understand the difference between the two systems, and they're able to deliver that seamless experience to the students. The other advantage we had is our campus in Dubai, our campus in Malaysia. So where we could bring in subject matter experts from Dubai and Malaysia. We did that. They joined hands with our academics in India. So that was a nice global mix there. And then from time to time, there are topic experts that give specialized lectures online through the online platforms from our Australia campus and the other global campuses we have. So we did understand that at a very early onset, that what they want is global learning for their local ambitions, and something that is quite contextualized to the local environment, even though the regulator keeps pushing that it has to be word for word what's in the home country. And so, yeah, I think we are asking for academic freedom, and I think we shall be lent that sooner rather than later. But yeah, that's been the experience. Students look for subject matter experts with a global exposure rather than global academics.
Right. Thanks, Nima. Rahul, what is your approach? Followed by Ricardo, what would be your approach in future? Yes.
All right. So for me on this one, the operating word is hybrid. I know this was overused during the COVID and post-COVID phase, but a hybrid is, again, the way to think about it as you bring in a blend of domestic faculty and international faculty or international experiences. Now, I was just having a conversation earlier with Matt, like from New Mexico, of course, professor of higher education. And so these are some of the established theories, for example, internationalization of curriculum. This established framework and a theory and a model and a critique over the decades. What it talks about is about this hybrid learning experiences for the student, because those experiences will not only come from who teaches it, but also what is taught and how it is taught and where it is taught. Now, the student who is going to learn here in these campuses, foreign university campuses in most of the places, but I'm talking from Aberdeen perspective, is this hybrid faculty experiences, where people would have gained their credentials overseas, came back to India, they could be of Indian origin, or they could be completely expats coming and teaching, or it could be Indian faculty teaching the international curriculum. Now you see there is a learning happening in every dimension for everyone who is involved in that process of delivery of that curriculum. And that maximizes the learning. Instead of a straitjacket, boilerplate, copy-paste, which would not give the optimal experience. So the key thing here is that the approach we are taking at Aberdeen is how do we ensure and maximize this hybrid delivery of learning, which is bringing a blend of international faculty, domestic faculty, practitioners to deliver this curriculum, which will be kind of pretty much taken from Aberdeen, but needs to be localized and customized to the Indian needs. And that's our approach to it.
Well, of course, our model our intention is to have, let's say, Italian professors like 60-70%, and local Indian professors for the rest. But there is a reason behind this, and the reason is that the way we teach, it's totally industry-based, totally professors of practice, so based. So we have a large turnover. Basically, we don't have tenure-track professors, and this is a burden, to be honest, because I mean, it's every year you have to build up the faculty, and every year you have to. I mean, it's a burden, but if you want to leave the correct footprint, not just in different countries, but in different territories, in different regions, you need the local industry. And if you need the local industry, you need those people. And if you need the local industry in India, you must have relation with those practitioners, those brands, and so you have to engage them. So for us, it's a no-brainer to have, obviously, local professors, absolutely. Then let me close with one reasoning. I mean, schools generically are made out of students, professors, and topics, but curricula. But everyone is focusing on curricula. But actually, we might have the same curricula of the same module, and the 6 of us will teach that module in a different way. So the basic is the professor. How this gentleman or this lady is giving an interpretation to the same module. So, of course, we must pay attention more than ever to the faculty rather than the content, because the content, at the end, it's kind of aerial. It's very light, the content. It depends on how heavy is and which is the density of the professor that is delivering that content, and also the quality of students. So basically, schools are the reaction between students and professors in an infrastructure with the content. So definitely, I'm working on this mixture that has to be not just 60-30, 60-70, etc., but is a mixture based on the density of content that can be delivered in the particular module. So I will pick people accordingly to the module.
Fantastic. So we have got variety from 70-30, 80-20 to module-wise diversity, and this obviously also resonates the type of degrees that we are offering, right? From accounting and IT, which are much more global, and engineering, which are much more global than design, which is incredibly unique. Fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone. So now we will take a few questions from the audience, and okay, fantastic. Oh, we have got a lot. Okay, I'll quickly come to look. We have got to respect the media partners first. Okay, so yeah, a PI representative here, and then I'll come to Alka Madam after that. Yeah, I'll come to you.
Hello everyone, my name is Abhishek. I'm a reporter for the PI.
Yeah, sorry, you know the drill. Please make it brief.
Sure, definitely.
And please direct it to a particular person, or if you want anyone to answer, please, yeah.
Definitely. Thank you for the amazing session, everyone. Just a quick question, actually, because we just did a story about the Symbiosis report on transnational education, which talked about how there's a lot of focus on STEM, business, fintech, AI courses, but it also mentioned the lack of focus on arts, humanities, social sciences. Now we know that some of the branch campuses here are trying to introduce psychology and film studies in the second phase, and of course IED is there, which is opening up with design. But is there anything that you as branch campuses or even as organizations are doing in terms of building that sort of ecosystem in arts, humanities, social sciences, working with the government and the industry? What sort of trends you're seeing? What are you hearing on that? Anyone can answer basically, but yeah.
Yeah, so I'm rephrasing it. Are you going to start the programs that does not make financial sense?
No, you're very, you're fair. No.
No, I wanted to make things lighter. So,
Can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
One of the asymmetry that we have in Italy is that we can deliver design programs under two different umbrellas. The universities and polytechnic, very STEM-oriented, and the academies of fine arts. This comes back from the French Revolution, where they divided the École des Beaux-Arts and the École Polytechnique. So the science, STEM, and the arts. So you can deliver design in different ways. We are an Academy of Fine Arts, and so all the references to humanities, liberal studies, phenomenology, histories, sociology, perception of colors and shapes, etc., are embedded. So I am contradicting what I told, because the curricula is very important, of course, and it's also important who is teaching this curricula, of course, but in our case, and this is something that I'm happy to bring in this country, in our case, we are teaching design at large through this perspective and not a perspective on the engineering school. That is correct, it's fantastic, but it's different. So that is one difference that we will bring.
I know, I just wanted to flag from the kind of UK perspective, we're definitely looking at a range of different subjects. And if you think about the creative industries, for example, which is an area I feel very strongly about, coming from the British Council, of course. But, you know, in the UK, the creative economy is moving, growing much, much faster than a lot of other sectors. It's one of our 8 priority industrial strategy sectors. India is a priority partner in our creative sector plan. India also has a hugely thriving and incredibly vibrant creative economy. PM Modi himself is really focusing on building and growing that economy. So we already have a couple of our universities that are offering courses in that sector. So York is offering creative technologies, University of York in Mumbai. University of Liverpool and Bangalore is offering a program in gaming design, working with some very exciting industry partners in Mumbai. University of Southampton has a creative technologies management program. So there are definitely opportunities, I think, to capitalize on both countries' expertise in the cultural creative sector to identify pathways into specific jobs and employment where there are gaps and where there are needs for collaboration. So, yeah, absolutely.
For us, it's very simple. We have the capability, we have the intent. I don't think we have the regulator's permission. The regulator's focused on STEM. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ian?
I think that is changing and changing quite quickly.
Yeah, it will. I'm not denying that. But right now, I think that's a question more relevant for the government. Are they going to allow us to do that? Yeah. But definitely, I can say this, there is capability and intent. We just have to be incentivized.
Okay, fantastic. Dr. Alka, followed by Dr. Anuradha. And then we'll take a student question, please. Students here, please be ready with your questions.
So thank you. It was a very wonderful session. And a question which I have is, since yesterday we have been hearing that India definitely is a new playground for all the foreign universities. What I want to understand is, and maybe all of you can answer, that all the representatives who are there in the panel right now, your universities have campuses, IBCs in other countries also. So we just want to understand what worked best for your IBC in other countries. Was it the education need, requirement in that country, research, your own students coming and studying in that country, or whatever, whatever worked best for you in other country?
So I think in this we'll have to go Nimai first, followed by Ricardo, isn't it? And then we'll come last to Ian. Yeah.
It's a trade secret I can't reveal.
Okay, that was easy. Okay, next, Ricardo.
No, look, as I said earlier, we try to embed ourselves in the local system to understand what works best. If we are going to be the foreign university forever, then we'll never be able to grow. So if you look at our Dubai campus, we have an industry advisory panel which is quite made up of the Emiratis and the royal family members. We work with the industry to fulfill the needs of that country. So similarly, that's the exact same model we follow in Malaysia, where we have industry advisory panels. We work with the industry. And the assumption and the understanding is that the graduate is going to join the local workforce, but with global capabilities. So if today, a graduate from University of Wollongong, India, joins the local workforce, but in future, if they get the opportunity to move globally, they are well equipped. So that is our intent, be it in Dubai, be it in Malaysia, be it in Hong Kong, India, and soon some other places once the war stops. But definitely, yes, that's our secret. We work with the local authorities, the local industry, and the local environment.
Okay, Ricardo.
The more I think to your question, the more I get confused. So let put it this way. universities, the word university, it's a Latin word, comes from Latin and means universal. It means that those places, the first one was in Bologna, where this gentleman studied, at the first university in the world, was a place open to everyone, universally open. So countries have been building up systems that are basically closed. So the regulators in Italy are regulating Italian universities, and in France, French, and the UK, Australia, India, etc. They are not open as they were or as they should be. So personally, I enrich my institution and myself if I open and I travel. So it's not a matter of squeezing a country, but it's a matter of enriching my country in somehow, myself. And by the way, I want to be free in deciding where I want to get rich and enriching myself. It's like holidays. I want to go in that place because I feel in that place I will learn something. So I came here and not in other big countries, for example. So what we will get is simply enriching and making the people belonging to this adventure getting richer, not economically. One consideration, I was impressed by the students this morning from Ethiopia, Russia, and all these countries. But let me think in a bit a romantic way. If those students were now at the top level of their own government, do you think we will have the same wars that we are having today? I'm sure they will be not going in this direction. So what we are doing in this mixture of cultures and a mixture of interactions is exactly going in this direction. And this is the reason why I'm happy to be here. Because once I will be back, I will be richer anyway. Anyway.
Ian, you want to have a last word?
I'm not sure I can follow that because I think that probably encapsulates what most of us believe. So I'll leave it with Ricardo, I think, at that point.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Anuradha, followed by students, please. Yeah.
My question is on global research parity. So since research is a very important component and also very important for the reputation of any organization, university, my question is that how do we ensure that there is equity in research offerings for the faculty members as well as the students in the hubs as compared to those who are present in the, the mother university? So how do we ensure that? Thank you.
I'm going to be disappointing in my answer, which is I don't actually believe you can ensure parity within a single institution. Even within our own systems, there is not parity within individual institutions. And I'm going to get myself in trouble with what I'm about to say. Competing in the research world now, and it is competition for both talent and ideas, means that as a university leader, you've got to find ways of bringing teams together that are close to the best in your country, if not close to the best in the world. And that means for individual universities, even the very best, you are making difficult decisions about how many fields of research can you support at that level or support at all. And I think one of the things that we will have to think about with branch campuses and others is what can we do that will make a meaningful partnership contribution. But I think, in all honesty, the days of this notion that every academic comes and there's a nice even distribution of research monies, that's not a strategy that is going to succeed. It is going to be about making some difficult choices. And I know that's not a very palatable answer, but I believe it is the only answer.
That is the reality, if you think of it. When you talk of research parity, will there be a parity in the output? There won't. Not every human being is enabled or capable the same way. If I were to publish a paper today, I can tell you 90% of the people in this room would do better than me. And that's the reality of it. So when you talk of research parity, when there isn't a parity in the outcomes, which are going to determine the subsequent income, there can't be a parity. Not just research for that matter. Can you ensure 100% of your students are going to get 90% of marks? I'm not even asking for 100% of marks.
Yeah, Rahul?
All right. So that's a very good question because as an academic organization, we are focusing on these three dimensions, right? Teaching, research, service. We have to blend them together to optimize the delivery. And to building on Ian's point, as campuses initiate their journey, they build up and scale up, they will take a little bit of time. So in the priority order, some strategic choices have to be made. Some tough choices have to be made. And in the initial years, while the intention is absolutely there, effort and investment is absolutely there, but to see the impact of it will take time. For example, a journal paper, many of you are here from research background, faculty members. You all know that from the time you put the first line on a journal manuscript to the time it gets published, it is in a decent journal, you are at least taking 2 years just to publish that one manuscript. So here we are talking about at an enterprise level, at an institution level, making an impact on research. So to me, I think the operating word, instead of parity, should be partnerships. So if the research partnerships can be enabled, where even an Indian institution and a foreign university is partnering to create some impact, or even at the individual researcher level, those partnerships can be enabled between the home campus and an India campus, it's a win. So that moving towards a direction of accelerating partnerships for research, that's where the biggest impact is going to be, as we give a little bit of 2 to 3 years of runway for these things to start showing some impact.
I don't want to be completely negative in my answer. I do want to say one thing. One of the things that I've emphasized in my social license conversation is that one of the things that I think has gone wrong with the Western university system has been an over-focus on institutional performance on research metrics as opposed to education metrics. And actually, I think there is a chance now to rebalance some of that and actually build meaningful education careers as it starts. We've had the University of Bologna mentioned. I don't think there was very much research that happened at the University of Bologna. It was a teaching institution for many, many, many years, as was Oxford and Cambridge. This notion of research and education being an inevitable component of a university really only happened at the beginning of the 20th century. So it's not a universal phenomenon, and I think we do need to remember that we've got to have parity of esteem between our education mission and our research mission.
Okay. On that very controversial note, we'll probably take the last question from students, and then we'll do the rapid fire and wrap things up. Any questions from students? Symbiosis students, domestic, international, doesn't matter. Any questions? Oh, we have got, sorry, where is it? Yeah, okay, thanks.
Hi, this is a question to anybody who likes to answer this. What is something that you have come to take for granted at your home institution which is turning out to be either operationally or academically a barrier here, or something that you have to be cautious about in India, which is not so in the home institution?
Well, very good question. I think we'll probably go to everyone. Who would like to start?
We have international students, we understand international culture.
Yeah.
That's, I think, one of the biggest myths that I came in with. I was like, oh, we've been exposed to multiple cultures in Australia, and Australia predominantly is known as a multicultural country. But when you actually move from dealing with international students, international communities in your home country to actually moving to that international country is significantly different. And I think that is one of the things that blindsided us, even with all the experience, that when you move from Australia to India, things change. Things are very different. Familiarity does not mean confident understanding. So we should leave that room.
That's a fascinating point, isn't it? Yeah. Ian, would you like to add something? Yeah.
I think probably the thing that we've learnt the most is that when we started, we assumed that an Indian student who was coming to study in an Australian branch campus was coming for an Australian educational experience. That's what they wanted. And they did, but they wanted it with an Indian flavour. And we'd sort of become complacent because we have lots of international students. They come in, they get embedded in the way we think about teaching and learning, which is much more self-motivated, self-directed, much less didactic. And we just assumed that that would be fine. It wasn't. So I think that really surprised us. And I think it comes back to, I think Ricardo was making the point about teaching with a local flavour that works. And I think that surprised us because we thought the reason these students were coming and they wanted that absolute 100% Australian experience, they wanted something that was a little bit different from that.
Rahul, would you like to add something?
I was trying to avoid the eye contact with Hardik so that I don't get this question answered.
You can, it's okay, you can.
No, I'm just kidding. But this is a really good question, actually. The part on being cautious, I think I'll connect it to my initial point that the complexity of student choice or college choice for students is not a very straightforward decision making. And even in the many other countries, parental involvement is there. But the extent to which it can influence the decision here is at the next level, right? And so the caution, which I would say that, okay, in the home country, like to Nimai's point also, the decision making could be a little bit more driven by, let's say, the weightage if you have to give, 80% student, 20% parent. But here, the mix, you cannot even put the bucket. It could be anywhere and any mix. So the cautious part here is that, okay, making assumptions about student choices here is a very risky proposition. Every family, every student is coming up with their different stories and very valid stories in terms of how and where they want to take this expectation. And that expectation need to be met. So you are basically not offering one thing, you are offering multiple versions of the expectations to the people who are coming to you. So the cautious part here is how do you make sure that, okay, this multiple, highly customized version for all the families or students who are coming to you, is that even possible? And the answer is no. So at some place, you have to be cautious that, okay, what is the real offering and what is the real expectation you can set? Because these universities cannot be everything to everyone. And that's a very high expectation to meet for any stakeholder, right? So moderating it to see that, okay, what is the place and the purpose where these universities are best suited to serve the maximum impact, that is yet to be proven.
Fantastic, great.
We have a quite good number of, compared to Italian numbers, quite a good number of Indian students coming to study with us in Italy. So I'd like to answer to your question looking it from a different perspective. My dream, and not my risk, but our dream is to have, after 10 years, Italian students coming to study here in our institution, because our institution will be an Italian-Indian institution. So no differences in terms of quality and not second choices, but as our students are going to Spain and they are studying in Spain, they will be here and they will be studying in India. So there are lots of risks in order to be able to achieve this dream. But this is the only way. Otherwise, it will be always what in French it's called a dépendance. The second choice, like the branch, like the, my institution is basically branches. So we are all branches of ourselves. So it has to be a mindset change. And that is actually my dream.
I absolutely agree. I was going to say exactly the same thing, that the thing that we don't take for granted is the importance of planning now to ensure that we encourage other students from other countries, obviously UK for me, but could be from anywhere in the world, that come and study at our campuses here in India, because that's where we get that enriched experience, that's where the students get to interact with each other, to learn from each other. And if you're interested, we just published a report just a couple of weeks ago that we interviewed 350 students who are interested in studying in India from the UK, and we also did a big survey globally, and we identified what are the reasons why they're not considering India as a study destination at the moment, and then hopefully our universities will be able to use that to inform strategies to make it more attractive.
All right. On that note, thank you all very much. I think we have almost consumed our time. Is that correct? Yeah? Okay. So, to wrap it up, I've asked all of you some very difficult questions. And sorry, Ian, you were the first one always to get... No, okay. Okay. So, thank you all very much for being very open, candid, in responding. Ian, thank you very much. You bring a very unique perspective, along with Ellison, because you've been engaged with India for a long time. Rahul's background and his new role are quite fascinating, and we got to know a lot about that today. And my Italian friend, come va? So thank you very much. You brought some very amazing perspective in terms of some of the questions that everyone has in terms of studying design and particular programs which are rooted in a particular culture. It's like teaching Sanskrit in Russia, right? So you are almost doing something very similar in that way. So thank you very much. Nimai, your roots, your journey, we really enjoyed, going through that and how it has impacted, and it is going to impact hundreds of students who are going to enroll at your Gift City campus. So Ian, Ellison, Rahul, Ricardo, Nimai, all of you, thank you so very much for your time. It was not an easy session, obviously, post-lunch, after a great lunch, but you all have been a fantastic audience. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of the evening.
Thank you very much for that, indeed a candid and insightful session. I now invite Lieutenant General Dr. Totakne, former Vice-Chancellor of SIU. In fact, please put your hands together, the first Vice-Chancellor of SIU to come up on stage to felicitate our speaker and moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Totakne. Thank you so much.